Welcome to this deep dive where we're going to unlock the secrets of what many farmers call brown gold. If you have an interest in sustainable agriculture and want to literally transform your exhausted dirt into a thriving, self-sustaining ecosystem, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're exploring the incredible, transformative power of green manure and how nature can do the heavy lifting for your soil health.
To kick things off, I want you to think about this number right here, 60%. What's absolutely fascinating is that 60% of the nitrogen from young green manure doesn't just wash away, it stays directly in the structure of your soil. It acts like nature's ultimate nutrient bank, locking that wealth exactly where your future cash crops are going to need it most. All right, let's look at our game plan for today. We'll start with the basics of green manuring, then we'll dive into the actual science behind healthy soil. After that, we'll hit the most crucial part, the optimal timing for plowing. Then we'll look at some real-world examples across different climates, and finally, we'll wrap up with common mistakes and how you can easily avoid them. Let's jump right into part 1, the basics of green manure. So, what exactly are we talking about here? The core concept is known as sideration, or green manuring. Basically, you're intentionally growing specific plants, but here's the catch. You are not harvesting them for food. You're growing them specifically to feed your soil microbes. Those microbes will then break down that plant matter and, in turn, feed your future crops. It is brilliant in its simplicity.
Now, you might be wondering, why not just use animal manure? Well, this comparison is a total game changer. Green manure is actually 15 to 18 times cheaper to produce. Plus, just 2 tons of this green mass gives you the exact same nutrient equivalent as half a ton of expensive, heavy animal manure. And honestly, the best part? 0 weed seeds. You completely bypass the risk of accidentally introducing thousands of weeds in your fields.
Moving right along to part 2, let's look under the hood at the science behind building healthy soil. Remember that 60% we talked about earlier? Well, this chart shows how the breakdown process is basically nature's version of a time-release capsule. While 60% of the nitrogen builds long-term soil structure, the other 40% mineralizes really quickly, usually within 2 months. This means your main crops get a massive boost of nutrients right when they're starting their most active growth phase. But you really have to think about this process like managing a balanced diet for your soil, specifically the carbon-to-nitrogen ratio. Young, tender plants are packed with nitrogen and decompose super fast. But if you let these plants get too old, they get woody and fill up with carbon. When that happens, they become incredibly hard for the soil to digest. The microbes have to work so hard that they'll actually pull existing nitrogen out of your soil to break them down, literally stealing nutrients away from your crops. Which brings us to part 3, and honestly, the absolute core of this entire explainer, the optimal time to plow. If you only take away one thing today, let it be this golden rule. You absolutely must terminate your cover crop at the very beginning of its flowering stage. This is the sweet spot. The plant's biomass is at its absolute peak, but the tissues are still tender and juicy enough to rot quickly. If you wait until the seeds mature, it is way too late. You've hit that woody, carbon-heavy stage we just warned you about. So how do we physically do this? It's not quite as simple as just firing up the tractor. Once your plants hit early flowering, you want to mow or crush them. And then, this is key, let that green mass wilt on the surface for about 4 to 5 days. This quick wilting process helps the material distribute much more evenly in the soil and kickstarts the rotting process before you even plow it in. Speaking of plowing, depth matters a lot, and it entirely depends on your soil type. If you have heavy clay soil, keep it shallow, maximum 10 to 15 centimeters deep. If you bury it too deep in clay, you accidentally create an oxygen-free zone where the plants just ferment and turn into a toxic mess instead of healthy compost. But if you're working with light, sandy soils that breathe easily, you can safely plow much deeper, up to about 30 centimeters. After you've plowed, you need to be patient. You have to wait a full 3 weeks, that's 21 days, before planting your main crop. The soil needs this time to fully digest the organic matter so it doesn't become toxic to your new seeds. Oh, and a quick pro tip. If your spring is unusually cold, those soil microbes slow way down, so you'll need to tack on another week or 2 to this timeline. Okay, let's transition into part 4, climate, soil types, and applying this in the real world. You actually have a few different options for terminating your cover crops. Natural winter kill is fantastic and completely free if you're a beginner using cold-sensitive plants like oats. Mowing is fast, but the surface protection doesn't last long. Crimping leaves a great, long-lasting mulch, though you might see some regrowth. And traditional plowing completely destroys the cover crop, but you do have to be careful about disrupting your soil's structure too often. The really cool thing here is that you can literally custom pick your green manure to fix specific problems in your fields. Dealing with heavy soil? Plant winter rye. Want to naturally suppress weeds or fight potato diseases? White mustard has amazing allelopathic properties for that. Need a massive nitrogen boost? Lupine is your best friend. Or if you need to bust through a tough hardpan layer deep underground, sweet clover has these incredible deep tap roots that'll do the heavy lifting for you. Now, there is one major exception we have to talk about: orchards. If you're managing fruit trees instead of a vegetable plot, do not plow your green manure in the autumn. It's a huge mistake. Doing so exposes the tree roots and leaves them incredibly vulnerable to freezing over the winter. Instead, you just want to mow it and wait to incorporate it during the spring or summer. All right, we are in the home stretch. Part 5, common mistakes and pro tips to get this right on your first try. Let's rapid fire through some classic traps. First, crop rotation is crucial. Never, ever plant a legume main crop, like beans or peas, right after a legume cover crop. You're just asking for a massive buildup of specific pests. Second, if your cover crop gets diseased, do not plow it in, burn it. Third, never let a weed-based green manure go to seed, or you're just planting future headaches. And fourth, never plow when the soil is wet. Actually, on that last point, here is a brilliant, foolproof test you can do before you even touch a plow. Just grab a handful of soil and squeeze it into a tight ball in your hand. Drop it on the ground. If the ball stays clumped together and doesn't break apart, your soil is way too wet. If you plow it now, you will completely destroy its delicate structure. Just be patient and wait for it to dry out a bit more. So we've covered a lot of ground today. The real question is, are you ready to finally ditch the expensive synthetic chemicals? Nature has already given us the ultimate low-cost tool for soil health. It's just a matter of putting it to work. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer. Just a quick reminder, while we've shared heavily researched agronomic insights today, every single farm and garden is a unique environment. Always make sure to consult with your local agricultural experts or extension services before making big changes to your plowing routines. Happy farming, and we'll see you next time.